Welcome back. Well, right now, the illegal immigrant charged with killing Laken Riley is back in court for day 2 of his murder trial. What can we expect? Well, Paul Morrow is at the courthouse in Athens, Georgia, with the latest. Good morning, Paul.
Morning.
Tell me what we can expect on day 2. And this is an unusual situation because when we listened to the testimony on Friday, it was very compelling.
Yeah, and it continues to be. We're getting down to the real nitty-gritty of the police action in response to the calls that they got. Right now on the stand is the officer that responded to the apartment that Jose Ibarra was found in and where he lived with his brothers. Now, there's a nuance going on here, Dana. The prosecution is very meticulously making a couple of points about the difference in Jose Ibarra's body type as compared to his brother Diego, his older brother, and the fact that Jose had visible injuries and Diego did not. The scratches we know were observed on Jose's body, and we know that Laken Riley did fight for her life and had fingernail debris that was collected by the police. But also there's the video that shows an individual taking what looks to be a hoodie and depositing it in a dumpster. Now, that ends up being important evidence. It has both Jose and Laken's DNA and blood on it. And that individual appears to be heavier than the images that we've seen of Diego. And what the prosecution is doing is getting out ahead of the defense's plan, which is to try to muddy up the waters and muddy up the DNA by saying it could come back to one of the brothers and not Jose.
I want you to listen to Tom Homan. He is President-elect Trump's border czar nominee. I don't know what they're going to call it that, but this is Tom Homan on this particular death.
This administration has blood on their hands. Listen to the way that young lady died. I just want to be this young lady got killed. No, listen to her fight for her life for 17 minutes, fighting for breath, fighting to survive. We're going to save lives, not only just Americans, but we're going to save lives of citizens and those legal migrants who many times are the victims of these illegal alien crimes. And
I want to show you this, Paul. Sanctuary cities freed 22,000 or more criminal migrants that were being sought by ICE under the Biden-Harris administration. And this case is emblematic of what people are concerned about across the country.
Yeah, you know, it really is. We've talked about the fact that you sometimes get these iconic crimes that stand for something larger, that bring a certain issue to the attention of the American people, and this is certainly one of them. Tom Homan speaks for the frustration of so many Americans when you hear the details of this, the fact that Jose was here illegally, he was released from ICE custody twice, his brother Diego the same. Both of them arrested here for minor crimes. Diego cut off his ankle bracelet, reportedly. You know, it's just they claim the same issues relative to Venezuela in order to get released and to stay here. It all looks very contrived, and that's something we have to get to.
I'm sorry, because I just wanted to interrupt you. I'm sorry. But I do want to get your take on the fact that these police officers are having to testify today because the criminal migrant was released.
Yeah, and, you know, that's an issue that goes to the fact that there's no coordination nationally regarding a gang like Tren de Aragua and the criminal migrants. You have the local police officers making these pinprick arrests around the country, doing what they can, and in some cases important felonies, but there's no synchronization. None of this stuff is being shared in a central database. We don't really know yet the contours of what we're dealing at a national level here, and that's because there's been no involvement from DOJ. When was the last time you saw a big takedown from DOJ relative to Tren de Aragua? You haven't, because it hasn't happened. And you have to say to yourself, where has that national level effort been for the last 4 years? Oh, absolutely. You know, look, there is going to be a mass deportation project, but you're going to have to make these cases as well to start with the criminals. And here's an important fact. We want to find these people that have been trafficked, especially children. Those kids are not going to present at a precinct on their own. To find them, you're going to have to get to the traffickers, and you're going to have to interview people. You're going to have to flip people. You have to put in undercovers, dump phones, get up on wiretaps. You're going to find these kids by going after the people that traffic them, not by just throwing people out. So that's what we're going to have to do.
All right. Thank you for being there for us today. We'll check back in with you as news happens in this trial of the murder suspect of Laken Riley. Paul Morrow, thank you. John?
Dana, more on those gangs. Now Fox News tracking the violent Tren de Aragua gang, clocking over 24 arrests in crime-ridden Chicago. And experts warning it is just the beginning for the criminal suspects who only plan on expanding further into the United States. Mike Tubman is live with the latest. President Trump, or President-elect Trump, is vowing to crack down. He's going to have a lot to crack down on.
Well, John, there's more evidence that the open border policy is allowing these South American criminal gangs access to the U.S., and not just border towns, but to the heartland itself. The conservative think tank, America First Legal, examined arrest records from Chicago police and found that in less than 2 years, at least 30 people arrested had connections with that violent Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. It was determined by examining the narrative in each record to see if the arresting officer thought the connection to Tren de Aragua was significant enough to write it in the report. Senior advisor with America First says there could be dozens more linked to the Venezuelan gang, but they either didn't get arrested or the connection didn't get mentioned in the paperwork.
These individuals are ultimately released because they're quote unquote seeking asylum. They come through with their wife and children under the auspices of asylum. But in reality, what you're seeing is transnational gangs coming in here and establishing a foothold where they can engage in, drug manufacturing, drug dealing, human trafficking.
A couple of cases highlighted through the investigation are John Barrios Moreno. The New York Post reports he came across the border illegally in May of 2023 and was released because he was with his wife and kids. He shows up in that Chicago data that says he was picked up for a traffic violation. Then the Post reports domestic abuse. Also, that he had been ordered deported before the domestic abuse case, but obviously he was in the States. Edwin Cameo shows up with an arrest for narcotics. The Post reports his charges were dropped. Both of them have mentions of Tren de Aragua connections in their arrest records. America First Legal says these individuals are not coming across necessarily for a better way of life, but to expand their criminal networks. John?
All right, Mike Tubman for us in Chicago with the latest on TDA. Thank you, Mike. Dana?
John, right now, the controversy over fairness in girls' sports is in the docket at the Supreme Court. The justices are now weighing whether to review a pair of high-profile appeals. The cases involve transgender athletes and where exactly they can participate. We're going to bring you updates as they happen. Everybody watching this closely.
But they could save tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars. Depending on how it's structured and what they do, this could be a constructive undertaking that ought to be embraced.
The new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, coming in with lofty goals and a promise to cut $2 trillion from the federal budget. Can DOGE do any good? Shark Tank's Mr. Wonderful on that coming up next. Plus, another potential shakeup in Washington with the incoming HHS secretary. What RFK Jr. can do to make America healthy again. Stay with us.
Well, traditionally, the Democrats have said ban. Now, RFK Jr. is saying this, but of course, the food industry fights back. The food lobbies fight back.